6:05, President Trump says Lebanon and Israel have agreed to a 3-week ceasefire extension.
Howard's got the details for us.
Good morning. Assuming Trump's declaration isn't disputed by any of the parties involved, this buys time for U.S.-Iran negotiations, lets Hezbollah regroup, offers a welcome respite for people who live near the Israeli-Lebanese frontier. Hezbollah is an anti-Israeli militia group bankrolled by Iran, but based on Lebanese soil. It has never been obedient to Lebanese authority, but generally obeys Iran's Revolutionary Guard. The U.S. continues its naval blockade of Iran, not just the Strait of Hormuz, but also upstream in the Persian Gulf and downstream in the Indian Ocean. Last night, the Navy boarded and seized an Iranian vessel, a tanker, not a cargo ship. The Pentagon called it a sanctioned, stateless vessel. It is the third vessel seized by the U.S. this week. Iran has seized 2 cargo ships whose 15 Philippine crew members say they are unharmed. A U.S. Army soldier is accused of placing prediction market bets based on classified information to which he was privy. The Department of Justice says Gannon Ken Van Dyke was part of the team that arrested Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. According to DOJ, Van Dyke won $400,000 betting on the outcome on Polymarket. He faces prison if convicted. After losing 180 points yesterday, the Dow is down about 60 points now.
All right. Thank you, Howard.